Hello, hello. I'm Eileen Roche, founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'd like to welcome you to today's episode of Between Friends. I'm so glad you're joining me for this topic today. We're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges that embroiderers face, and that is stitching realistic skin tones. Oh my, it can really, send us in a dither. But we have an exciting guest that's going to join me in a couple minutes. And he's going to help kind of break down this process so that we choose the right fabrics. And if you're a digitizer, you're going to learn some really great tips. And if you're not, it will help you understand, how faces are often digitized and why, and what you can do to control the shading and the blending. So please sign in. Tell us where you're watching from today. Hi, Esther Hopland. Hello, Judy Warren. Nice aloha to you. Nice to have you here. Betty Turner up in Missouri, and Cheryl McCombs in Colorado. And I hope that you are participating in the On the House program. That's our free weekly design that we show, that we share every week on Thursday. And at the end of today's program, I will share today's free design. And then next week will be a project based on the House. So it's been a lot of fun. And a lot of you are doing beautiful work. And I'm excited to share your work with everybody else. Let's see. Hi, Dory Hobson. Yeah, she says she's sorry she missed me at Flash. I did pop into Flash Sew and Quilt last week. I was down in Florida visiting my sister because she lives right in that neighborhood. It was her husband's a big birthday, and we had a surprise. It was really quite fun. So I was happy to, travel quickly, short trip. Well, you're probably wondering just what we're going to talk about. Well, of course, today's today's program is brought to you by our skin tone collection. And this is an assortment of 12 different colors that really helps you achieve a balanced skin tone for both fair, medium, and dark skin tones. So, thanks, Judy Warren, the comment about the earrings. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so, let's go ahead and I'll tell you a little bit about my mystery guest. First off, he's a trained artist, although he's not currently working as an artist, but he is also an IT wizard. He has several degrees in commercial art, fine arts, TV production, and believe it or not, electrical engineering. So, but really the heart of this gentleman is his fascination with art and actually the sculpting of art, right? Like, 3D art, sculpting and relief work. And that's what drew him into embroidery, because we can get so much depth in embroidery, unlike a lot of, other art endeavors. You're not always able to achieve that depth. So way back when, he fell into the embroidery world, and over 20 years ago, I inherited him. So I'd like you to meet Roy Garland, pardon me. He has been at Dime since the beginning of time. Hi, Roy.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Really well. It's so lovely to have you here. Of course, we work together every day, right, Roy?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
We've been together forever.
Yeah, I know. Like you like to say, since the beginning of time, just feels that way. But, what do you do at Dime? I mean, you wear so many hats at Dime. I'm not quite sure how to describe that to everybody else.
I'm a project manager, IT.
Mm-hmm.
I even, mop the floor occasionally. We all do stuff together.
That's pretty rare. I mean, Roy is really, he is, when he says he's the IT guy, he's what makes, our whole business run, make sure everybody's connected. Anybody needs a new computer, a new system in any fashion, it's Roy. He works making sure that our website talks to our accounting software, which talks to our inventory software. And I mean, that's just kind of at the high level, right? Because on the, should we call it the low level?
I help design,
you
help
also
design the software, the hoops, all that, engineering drawings.
So when many of our customers ask for features in a software, or maybe they have a request or a complaint, it's Roy that I go to, and we brainstorm and see how we can solve that problem on the software side. So that's awesome. Oh, just awesome. Love having you here, Roy. Yeah. I know. Let's see. You have some fans. Catherine Kershaw has said that you have helped her before, and you're very helpful and friendly. Now, maybe you're familiar, and I believe that would be true. But you also have another family relative that works at Dime, and that's your brother Kelly Garland.
Yes, he's my little brother.
My little brother. Yeah, and he is technical support for Dime. So yeah. Oh, here we go. You'll like this one. Marianne says, a jack of all trades, or Roy of all trades. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And here you have a fan, Reen Wilcoxon. Hi, Reen from Embroidery Garden. Love having her here. Absolutely. Okay. So in today's program, you promised that you would kind of take a look at that skin tone palette and work on digitizing we're going to call him a human, but he's not really a human. So
yeah, it's little art, what we used in drawing art back in the day. Even today, you can find this little wooden guy, my little wooden friend, anywhere.
Right.
And it's a good thing for learning how to do shadowing and picking up the light sources, and you can move them in different ways. So I figured that this might be a good introduction into this.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. So here's that artist mannequin. It's a 12-inch figure, and it's posable. So all those joints bend and open and, extend and so forth. So it is a great way to learn to draw the human shape, and also to digitize. So you posed it and took a picture, right?
Yeah,
and
took a picture with my phone.
Right. And then you sent that to your hard drive. And
yes.
You are in Perfect Embroidery Pro.
Correct.
Right. And you loaded that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we go ahead and I bring up the design in the software. And typically what I like to do, especially if I've got a skin tone pack, I like to build my palette. This helps me stay focused on what I'm doing. I'll give you an example. When I'm in the software itself, I'll go ahead and bring up a new screen. I'll hit minus, and then I'll start typing in the colors.
Oh, so you are designing your own personalized palette right in Perfect Embroidery Pro.
Correct.
I love that. So if you're working, like right now we're talking about skin tones, but let's say you're designing embroidery, for a blue bedroom, then you could build a palette that just focuses on those colors. I like that. Yeah, because, sometimes I get confused and, I go off another track.
It really keeps you grounded. Yeah, it really keeps you grounded.
It does.
Another thing I like to do is, especially with thread charts or 12 spools in a box set like this, I like to make my own little chart and sew it out where I can actually look at it, feel it, move it around, see how the light hits it.
So Roy, you just, with the pen tool, the artwork tool, you drew a square, and then changed that to a complex fill.
Yes.
And then added the numbers, which is the thread color number above it.
Correct.
I love that. Very handy.
Okay, so after I get my palette all set up and ready to go, I like to look at what I have here and try to decide what my base color is going to be. And I'm planning to make this my base color right here, which is 830, because that seems to be the dominant color in this, for me at least, me looking at this.
Okay.
But I see a problem, this right here. So this little problem here, I want to digitize this first and then lay another fill right on top of this to soften it. So what I do is I digitize that piece, which is this right here. And I do nothing special. I don't change the anything from the defaults. It's at 0.42 with underlay. The only thing I do special though is change the direction of stitch here. Now changing the direction of stitch is key to really bringing your design alive. Can everybody see how I'm doing this? I grab the line and it gives me an angle stitch numbers across.
Yeah, so maybe we can't see the actual number, but just take our word for it. That text box that was there was displaying the angle. Not that you have to know the angle, but if you're duplicating steps, correct, Roy, then you'd want to know.
Yes, you'd want to know. It'd be good to maybe make a note of that angle if you're putting fills on top of fills, and that's exactly what we're about to do.
Okay, that's awesome.
Okay, so the next thing I do is I'm going to soften this area up right here.
Mm-hmm.
I do a color change and digitize right over the same area.
Mm-hmm. So like when you digitize that, did you copy and paste?
No, I actually digitized it, but you could copy and paste. Typically, you don't get to cheat like that. Here, you could have cheated. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, just to show you, there is two separate fills here, okay?
Yep. And so your darker one is you're starting with the darkest thread, and that's going to lay underneath the others for this figure.
Yes, you're going to put a light on dark on this, and this is the key to get these to blend. There's three key things you need to understand. One is you change the density, loosen it up. I went from a 0.42, which is the darker one, to a 0.90. That'll bring those stitches out and allow the color to come through from the bottom. That's one. Two, you have to turn your underlay off. If you have your underlay,
the properties box right there in Perfect Embroidery Pro, and those tabs at the top of that properties box give you access to all those different features, and underlay is one of the tabs, right, Roy?
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love
that. The default is this one, perpendicular.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to turn that off. And then the next key thing is to have the angle of stitch match the angle of stitch that's below it.
Okay. And you had told me previously when you were digitizing a figure, you like the angle to go into the figure.
Into the figure itself. Now, if you're doing a portrait, I typically either have everything flow to the center or one eyeball, like a pupil of an eyeball, and it kind of brings all that together.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to start doing my base, digitizing my whole base. Now, this is where a lot of people, I don't know, it's not make a mistake. There's no real mistakes at this. It's just how I do it, okay?
Sure.
I'll go through here. Let me bring this up here. When I digitize these, I change the angle. I break it up into its elements. This is on a face. It doesn't matter. In this case, it's a simple face, but even if you had a complex face, you still break it up into its softer areas. This one's got a little harsher areas, but I change the angle of the stitch even slightly for each piece. So here's a really good sample. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but the angle of stitch is this direction. Let me get to, it's this one. And the angle of stitch is this. See how they're coming like almost a V?
Sure. Yep.
Now, before I go any further with that, I mean, it's every one of these objects. And I believe I digitized 23 complex fills here.
Wow.
Now, some people will digitize this as one fill.
Yeah, so show us that,
put details on top. So I went ahead and did that. I digitized that. And this will give you an idea of why I do what I do. I'm going to put this in slow draw, and this is how the sewing machine is going to sew the design.
Right. So this is like if you were doing auto digitizing, if you were using a wizard, this is probably how the wizard would digitize that figure, correct, Roy?
Absolutely, yes.
It sees it as one shape.
Correct. So it's done. Now look at my version of it. And I want you to make note when I say direction of stitch, that's the sewing machine doing the direction of stitch, like how it's going to sew on the machine itself.
Right.
And that's
For
crucial
sure.
because what I'm trying to do here by breaking it up and changing the angles, I want the light in the room to reflect off these stitches.
Right.
And
Because what you're drawing here, you know, when you get to the end of this simulation, it's all the same thread color.
Absolutely.
But it does appear to have some different shades, and that's just only due to the direction of the stitching. And of course, we're looking on a flat screen. So imagine when it's stitched out and how light plays off it on fabric. You really get that effect.
So I'm going to go back over here. Now I want to bring up another technique. Now this is just I guess an old school technique, but it's still worth mentioning. When you digitize, it's a big giant logic puzzle. So at least how I look at it. When I break these up, I'm always concerned about my inners and exits because I do not want to do a trim or a jump or run over an area.
Right.
So inner, exit, and where the red is now, that's where my green is.
Okay.
Where my red is now, that's where my green is.
Yep.
This is another.
You have the shape tool selected. That's the second arrow in the toolbox on the left. And that's what lets you see the start and stop, right, Roy?
Correct. You're in edit mode with the shape mode. So now here's a good thing to look at what I do right here. I finished this area right here, but now I want to move from here to over here. I don't want to do a trim. I don't want to run across this fill that it's already been sewn, but this neck has not been sewn yet. So I'm going to run down into the neck and then up. This is just going to end up being underlay. So in, out, and so forth. Now are coming up with another one. I wanted to run up to this direction and sew this down. It just becomes underlay. So I just do a running stitch up, then I digitize the fill. And I go through the design.
Very nice.
Same thing with that arm, and down it goes.
Yeah.
So at this point, I have my baseline of colors, or my baseline. Now, again, I have not done anything special with this. These are all standard fills with underlay, everything. Okay. All I did was look at my subject and break it down into its elements.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, I start going into these darker shadow areas. I want to start highlighting those areas up and softening up certain areas like we did before. We're going to go back to this fill that we did earlier with no underlay, the three rules: same direction angle, no underlay, and make sure the density is pulled open. And that's what I do here.
Ah, now you're really getting some depth.
Now, one thing, unfortunately, I told you inner, exit. These, and at least in this design, and you'll run into this when you're doing faces too, when you start getting into this kind of shadow detail, you're going to have to do some trims because some of these are just not close to each other. Okay.
Yes.
But if you can eliminate trims and jumps, do it.
Right. That's the goal. Always try to eliminate them.
It makes the design run. It takes more time to sew a design if it has a whole bunch of trims in it. Also, the thread can come undone and all kinds of silliness happens.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point, after I get these kind of harsh little areas here,
yeah,
now I'm going to start thinking about the light source is somewhere out over here. You see how it's hitting these parts and softening up? You get this
Yeah.
kind of like a glow on here. So I'm going to start working this out. There's no set rule of how you put it in place, but just I'm eyeballing it, and I'm putting in these images right here, or not images, but these
Softer areas.
softer areas.
Highlight.
Now understand that this is on top of the fill. So when we're going back to light on dark again.
Yes. And, but with an open density, and the stitch direction is the same as the complex fill that's underneath of it, correct?
The density is different. The density would be a 0.42. This is a thicker one here, but right here, I actually brought this one out even more than 0.90. I put on 0.95.
Okay.
Because I really wanted to open up and really soften out the threads a little bit.
Because you want some of that, the thread that's underneath, to bleed through. You do want to see some of it. That's what the blending is all about, right, Roy?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely it. And that's the reason you do the same direction of stitch, because if it's off, then you're almost doing a hatch work. You might see it, but it just won't look nice. It'll look like a platform.
Right.
Underlay is a death to this kind of stuff. You'll just see that little string going through there, and you just lost your whole effect.
Right.
So how are we doing with that?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing is for the most part, this is done except for the detail work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on what I digitized with the detail and show you a couple of tricks I do.
Okay.
So we're just going to look at the detail. One of the things I have a pet peeve when I'm doing stuff about this, I don't like bean stitch. I'm not a big fan of the bean stitch. Well, I know a lot of people are, but I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it, especially when I'm doing this kind of digitizing, it makes it look stitchy and it takes away from the softness. I want a nice little pin line. Now,
so it's too heavy. You feel it's too heavy of a line.
It looks like a bunch of little beans are lined up.
Okay.
I don't like the lineup. I want these threads to overlap each other, and I want to make sure I don't drop a stitch in the same hole.
Right. So you want one continuous line. I can see that. Just like a pen.
Just like a pen. So I'll give you an example here. I'm going to zoom in on this. You see all these imperfections I have in here?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I know that drives some people crazy, but I know that is not going to go in there.
Right. Okay. So go ahead and hit your realistic view. And then at the top of your screen, what is your magnification that you're zooming in there? Does that say 3,000 or 300?
319.
Yeah.
So right now, this thread is huge.
Yeah. Right. But, at 300 magnification, when that's stitched on a garment or fabric, whatever it is, you're not going to see any separation between those lines.
No, you won't.
Right.
No.
So sometimes when we digitize, when we're learning how to digitize, we're so hard on ourselves. You think you have to get it right on top of the previous line, but really there's quite a bit of room. It's a line of thread, right? So it's skinny, skinny, skinny. If there's a tiny bit of separation, you're probably fine.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So now I'm looking at this. Another rule of thumb is these detail parts that's inside the element. My rule of thumb, that's always 2-ply. Okay. Outside, edges, all of this, and including in these little trouble areas right here and right here are 3-ply. Okay, so not a bean stitch, but a 3-ply. So it is still a 3-ply, but not a bean stitch. So when I start to digitize my details, I'll pick one point, and then I'll start digitizing my points around. So I'm right here now. I walk in, I walk out. That's a 2-ply now. Yep. Same thing here. In, out, 2 plies. In, out, in, out. Now I'm right here. Now it gets tricky now. I'm going to be coming into here, around. I get all this done first, all of this kind of stuff. And there's my last stitch.
Nice.
So I've taken care of all my detail work, and now I go, that's now a 2-ply. Now that's a 3-ply, and I'm out. So let's go ahead and look at that, how it's when it stitches, like the sewing machine is going to go in, out.
Okay.
You see I'm in that trouble area now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's your 2-ply. There's your 3-ply. And then I just walk out.
Okay.
So everybody gets the idea here.
Yeah. I think pathing, and this is what we would call pathing, right, Roy?
Correct.
Yeah. It to me is my biggest challenge when I'm digitizing. I almost have to stitch it out and then correct the mistake. Like even with the simulator and the software and all that, every time I digitize something and then I stitch it 1 or 2 times, of course, every time I stitch it, I find something that could be improved. Is that
absolutely me too?
Right?
This really is, the software is so forgiving and
Mm-hmm.
allows you to fix things easily that it makes an old digitizer like me sloppy back in the day.
Yeah, right. So
Let's finish this off here. I mean, right now I'm
okay.
right back to where I started.
Yeah, which is
So
the
now
whole
I just go
idea.
2 more times around to get my 3-ply,
Okay, on the outside.
and I'm done.
Nice, nice. So do you have any words of wisdom on how to, what I would say, attack pathing? Like, I mean, where do you start, right?
Well, one thing you could do theoretically is, like this picture right here, print it out on a piece of paper
Uh-huh.
and sit there with a pen and just, one of the
Draw.
things we used to do is I'd put an arrow, I'd break this up and put arrows where I want my direction of stitch to be.
Mm.
Then I'd find where those other little areas are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have that right beside me and digitize on screen, or retake a picture of it again and bring that in with all my notes.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Depends if it's a real complicated design. I've been known to do that.
Right.
Sit there and just draw on an art package or something, or on a
Mm-hmm.
piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense. That's pretty fun. So let's see. Lynette Bray wants to know, is it best to digitize on a drawing tablet or computer, or it really doesn't matter?
Drawing tablets, if you're talking about like where it takes control of the pen, I actually prefer to have it on the screen itself. If it's old school with a puck, that's how I learned, with a 16 button puck.
Okay, nobody knows what a 16 bucket
Okay,
puck.
oh, sorry. If
Okay.
on the screen would be better.
Why
There
did
you
you
go.
cut you short? You could explain what that is. I didn't mean to cut you short.
If you do have a tablet, I don't have a tablet on this, but if it's
Yeah.
one of the ones like I forget the name of it, where it has the pen, you'll get a new icon popping up that you can take control of that and do different things with it down here.
Yeah. And I would say to Lynette, it really, in my opinion, it depends on your drawing skills. Like, I am not an artist who can freehand like this, but I do okay, on a computer where the points and straight lines are, the software is helping me do that for sure. Now, Perfect Embroidery Pro and all of our software allows you to use a touch screen. So if your computer has a touch screen and you like drawing with either a stylus or even your finger, then you can do that in our software. It's just a setting, right, Roy?
Yes, it's we got multiple settings in the software up here under general options for digitizing.
Yes.
Simple draw, bezier, and freehand.
Right.
So.
And freehand would be a stylus.
Yeah, freehand would be like this. If I sat there and I just did freehand, and now I can just sit here. Well, I guess I didn't do that, did I? Let's try that again. Freehand. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. So see, he's literally just drawing with a pen, with the pen. Which I draw my stipple like that often because I'm comfortable free motion stippling. So if I'm designing something, I can turn on that touch screen and then just draw, and it's kind of faster than using the points. Okay, so let's see. KK Quilts wants to know. She asked, Wacom. No, that's not how you say it. Tablet, the drawing tablets. Sure, they work. If you have those art skills, absolutely. You most certainly can use them.
And the software will recognize it and give you some options.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But for most of us, we would use the pen tool and in the software. And then on the board, on the keyboard, we would use the control key, hold that down while you're setting points to have a curve. But also in our software, go ahead, Roy, and just kind of, sketch something else out so that you have, since you have the software up. And as I want to show them how easy it is to change a point from a line to a curve or vice versa.
Let's go back to simple.
Which I really like in Perfect Embroidery Pro because, like I said, I'm not an artist, so I am definitely going to be making some mistakes. And the software lets me go back and correct them. So nice. So here you have some straight lines and you have curved lines. And you can change all of them. Like you could turn that straight corner just with a right click. You can turn that into a curve, correct?
Or yes, curve it. And well, let's say here we do this one. Actually, the fastest way to do it is we added this feature recently. Just grab right here.
Yes, that's right. And that just turns the adjacent points into curved points.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is really handy. And sometimes I just, drag the cursor over all those points and then right click and say curve, which is awesome. So Kay Lynch French, she has a comment where she said when she started machine embroidery, she had a worksheet to fill out the steps. Well, a lot of commercial embroiders most certainly use that for digitizing, but they also use it for ordering. Like if you're going to go and have linens monogrammed or something, then a commercial embroiderer will greet you kind of with a clipboard that has all of the options listed, like the color of the thread, the font selected, the actual letters that you want, and the order you want them stitched in. Right, Roy?
Absolutely. That's one of the features we also have in the software too is let me show. If you go up into general options, you can pick your substrates or the material that you plan to use before you start digitizing. And it'll set all the densities for these different items that we feel that are the right density numbers.
Right. That's awesome.
But the one we have as default seems to be the most rounded number to use, at least in the beginning. Then you can kind of go sideways with it, depending on the type of material you're sewing on. Okay,
so here's an interesting comment, question from Sybil. She says, if you're using a photo stitch, now I'm guessing exactly what you're saying, what you're asking, Sybil, but I know that we have a software program that is photo stitch and that other software companies do too. And what that enables you to do is bring in a photograph of a person or anything, a pet or what have you, and it will auto digitize it and it applies lots of colors. So she wants to know, should you limit the number of colors of thread in that stitch out?
On when you're using a photo stitch is the question? If you can limit the colors always, because depending on if you have a 1 needle machine or a 10 needle machine, I mean it drives you nuts having to rethread the machine after every color change. But
So that's spoken from a commercial embroiderer's background, right? They, time is
Absolutely.
money, and thread changes translate to lost dollars.
Exactly.
And it's true, Roy, and really, as many of us have been in this, even if it's just a hobby, we've been at it a long time. Sometimes, we don't think that extra shade of blue is all that important, and we just plow right over it with the original blue, right? So,
Absolutely. Like
yeah.
we wanted that extra
Mhm.
shade of blue back in the day. With the same techniques we just showed you. Let's say it's a blue balloon, but we
Yeah,
wanted one that was just a slightly less blue. We'd sew
right.
white over low density,
Sure.
and it would
There you
change
go.
the color.
Yeah. So, but I think in the photo stitch programs, the reason their whole kind of algorithm behind them is the variety of color that they lay into the design. So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't change those settings in the photo stitch software. Now, if you're digitizing from scratch, like Roy showed us a little while ago, that's different. I would start with a selected palette. You can always change, you can always add and subtract. But if you narrow your choices, Roy, why don't you go ahead and bring up that palette page again, that you actually made the 12 stitch outs of the colors that are in that skin tone pack. So that gives you a really good visual of what that thread's going to look like and how they relate to each other. You know?
Exactly.
Right.
Now, here's another thing just to add on to that. I'm going to go back
Hmm.
to our design over here.
Yeah.
Now, I got my 12 colors, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to get rid of my little my artwork, and I'm going to hit the minus key now. I only used 4 colors to digitize this.
Right. Nice. But if you were doing different skin tones, like very fair, I would call this a medium tone, or darker skin, then you would use other colors, or maybe
Other ones in the
all of
palette,
them.
maybe all of them.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Cindy King says that she knows even when with purchase designs, she gets lazy and combines some in the colors, and she has a 15 needle machine. I hear you, Cindy. I hear you. I know it's not. We don't like to change color. Okay, Ann Philbeck. Most designs don't have more than 4 or 5 color changes, right? Not so sure about that.
Uh,
Most, well, we don't want to generalize, right? But I think that embroidery that has depth and true visual appeal usually has a 6 to maybe 10 colors at a minimum. Would you agree, Roy? Because that's what's going to
yes.
give you your base, your shading, and then your highlights. And it's those 3 elements that give the 3D effect of embroidery.
Yes.
Otherwise, we might as well just do vinyl, right, Roy?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, let's see. And Janice says it's fun playing with software. You learn so much. It is fun playing with software. And the best part about it is you can't break software. Literally, you can't break it. You can't wear it out, like your rotary cutter, right? You use it too much, or you slide over a pin or the ruler, you got to get a new blade. Not with software. Not with software at all. And best practice is to open a design that you already own and immediately save it under a new name, and then play with that design and learn your software. Roy, when you talked about changing density and so forth, I like to tell people to exaggerate those settings. This is when you're playing. This is not a
Oh,
design that
yeah.
you're actually going to stitch out. But like you said, the density, our default is 0.42 for a complex fill. Well, if you don't really understand how to open the stitches so that you have more space between, then put a tiny number in that box, like, 0.01, or a really big one like 0.95, and see the difference. Right, Roy?
Yeah. Yes. One
Yeah.
of the things we used to do also is I had a density, just like the thread chart that we'd sew out. We were showing earlier. I'd have
Hmm.
a density chart.
Right.
I'd sew out a
That's
bunch of
smart.
squares.
Yeah. So go
And
ahead. Let's go ahead and bring that back up. And because you can't break software, Roy, why don't you click on one of your chips there and copy and paste it and change the density of maybe 146. Really open it up and remove the underlay so they can see what that's going to look like by itself. Yeah, look at that. See, that's totally different now. And what did you do to that number? What number is it?
I did 146. I'm going to do a 1 this time.
Okay. Right. Look at the differences. So that 42.42 is the default. That's going to give you good coverage so
That's
that
this
you
one right here.
really cover the fabric. But when you open it up, like we see under 146 and 830, man, that really makes a difference.
So I'll make at home, I have charts like this. They just open up.
Yeah. And so, you know, that's a good use of someone's time who wants to learn their software or learn how to digitize, is to just spend, 20 minutes making a chart like this, and then you'll have it as a reference. And you know what? You don't even have to stitch it out. I mean, it would be smart, but you can start by not stitching out. Okay, so hey, Roy, Cindy King's husband is an artist, and he will say, if you want it to look like a photograph, just take a photo.
That's good.
Not only is he an artist, but he's a comedian. I love it. Yeah. And then Ann Philbeck wants to know, does Roy have a YouTube channel or a website?
No. They hide me in the back.
Do you need another job, Roy? Right? Yeah, Joanne Banco, she makes a good point. She says, seeing is understanding, and samples make a great reference tool. They really do. Absolutely.
Yes. Can't stress that enough.
Right. And here you've written, the stitch digit is the thread color. But Roy could most certainly put another set of digits next to each box, and that could tell him at a glance what the density setting is. So,
yes. Yes. Yeah. I would, instead of putting the stitch number, I would actually change this. What did I use? 1.46.
Right. Or, next to it. So you still have thread number and you have density.
Oh, well, it's the same number there. This one I did it 1.
Hey, when that happens, right? Nice. Yeah. And so if you do that, of course, you have the color chips below. So you always have the thread identified in that file.
Correct.
Yeah. So good to know.
You could actually make a really, we have 12 of them here, right? You could set this up with 12 straight down with 4 going across and put the numbers on the side. This is this color across, and these are all the densities down.
Yeah. It's the fun stuff. It's the real fun stuff. This is what you do. Okay, so when you're bored at night. Well, a couple comments. So Joanne Banco says we need to see Roy more often. And then Ashley Jones says you should be making digitizing videos because, like in your spare time. Okay.
Yeah, just my spare time.
And then Liz Ballard wants to know, what have you designed for Dime? Well, Roy doesn't design embroidery collections. He makes sure the software is compliant with Microsoft and Apple platforms as they update. He's in charge of that. He's in charge of all the libraries that you see in your Dime software. So, I mean, he most certainly will. You'll create some of the shapes, or you'll find them, or we'll purchase them from an artist. But, he makes sure they're all in the proper order and in the right library. Man, is that complicated, right, Roy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we get input from everybody, even customers. We get inputs on things like Pam or Patchmaker.
Patch and applique maker.
Patch and applique maker. We all sat around, figured out what we wanted. We took notes and we grew it into a program.
Right.
What?
Well, Lynette says, yes, Roy, that will be awesome. A YouTube channel, all your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And he's not going to do that. And he really doesn't have time. But anyway, Mary Larson says she loves the density chart design. because they have Pep Club. I love that. And I'm always in awe when our teacher has us change the density.
I would
Yeah.
also suggest, you just seeing me do fills right now, have the exact same thing for satins.
Right. For satins. Oh.
And running stitches, doing
Yeah.
length to stitches.
Stitch length. Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of boring, but
Well, it's not kind of boring, but it might help.
yeah, it might help to me. And so, stitch length. Let's talk a little bit about stitch length on run stitches. I have a preference when I digitize quilting designs that I do a 2.4 stitch length. So tell me, and if I'm doing really tight curves, really, really tight bubbles, let's say, that are small, then I'll go down even smaller than that because I want to get that arc. My longer stitch length is going to look like a straight line. So how about you, Roy? Like when you were outlining this mannequin, what stitch length on that run outline would you use?
I believe let me see what I used. It's whatever the default is in the software I did.
Oh, that's a 3.0 is the default.
Okay, I actually tightened this up. I did a 2.5.
2.5, yeah. So pay attention to that when you're digitizing. It's important. And we often just, kind of let the software set that, digitize the design of the default setting. And, you do have control over that. So pay attention to it.
Yes, you do.
Oh, does Roy have an email that we can ask questions when we're working on one of the dime collections? How about if I just post his cell phone number? Can I do that, Roy?
Yeah. You will still work with me?
Cindy, we're happy to help. In our Facebook group, you most certainly can ask there. We man that with ambassadors, influencers, educators, and our customer service team. You can call our customer service line to get answers, 1-888-739-0555.
And typically,
Roy,
if they don't know it, they come to me.
Right. And but yeah, Roy, he really couldn't take on that responsibility. That's we're getting to be a kind of a big company, right, Roy?
Yeah, we are.
Which is a blessing.
It's surprising. It is a blessing,
Yeah.
but it's challenging too.
Sure. And our whole thing in 2022 is customer experience, which we want to be excellent and enjoyable. Embroidery is a hobby, and we all have choices on how we spend our free time. So we want your experience when you are working with dime and working with dime products to be really good. So let us know, and we're happy to help, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you should see what some of our viewers have done, Roy. You want to take a look?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, because last week, as we have every Thursday in 2022, we're releasing a new design, and we're calling it On the House. And many of you are posting it on social media. And like last week's design was this adorable birdhouse. So
nice.
Here, Reenwell Coxon, what she said in her comment when she posted this image of her birdhouse, she said, what I love about Dime's free designs and all of Dime's collections is we provide in multiple formats, machine formats for all machines, but we also provide our native format, which is C2S. And that means you can open that design in Dime software and change it however you would like, because this design here is really an applique design. That's how it was digitized. That's how it was given to you as a free design. But Reenwell Coxon has Dime software, so she went in and turned it into a freestanding lace design. How cool is that?
That is very cool.
I know, I love that. It's really adorable. And here is Mary Larson. Now that rainbow heart design that you see down there in the lower right corner, that was our free design, and she made this into a mug rug. Well done. Really love your colors. Beautiful. Okay, let's see. And Carol Ann Bowser, this was our February project, and it was a bowl koozie. And the free design was the In the Hoop Bowl project. It was available for both 4x4 and 8x8 hoops. And the You Wore My Heart embroidery design is just adorable. That was part of the free design. Well done. Look at that fabric, huh, Roy? Didn't she
I know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, select a really cool fabric. It's just the perfect companion to that design. Okay, let's see. And here's Candy Bray. This is last week's free design, which was an applique. As you can see, in both the small and the large version, she did stitch it as an applique. And she added a branch and a bird. It's so cute. People are having a blast with these designs.
I like the chain too.
Yes, very nice. Is that chain stitched or is it real?
I don't know.
I don't know. I can't see from here, but well done. Really well done. So much fun. Yeah, let's see. Cindy King says, love that. Yep. And they are really fabulous. Yeah. Oh, Dawn Tennyson, she just ordered the skin tone thread collection. Oh, thank you so much for your business. We appreciate that, Dawn. I think you're going to find a lot of good uses for that skin tone pack. It's really handy to have. You never know when you want to stitch, faces. Okay, so Candy Bray said it is a stitch chain.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful. Really
Nice
well
job.
done.
Nice job.
Yeah, nice job is right. Okay, this week's free design on the house is the light as a feather. Is that beautiful or what? Talk about running stitches. This delicate flower is only made up of running stitches. And let's go ahead and take a look at the replay. Oh, I do somewhere have a replay. I don't have it. Maybe Sam will post it for us. There you go. So you can watch the stitch out. So it's going to start with that indigo and go to purple and then kind of an orchid and an orange and a light yellow it will finish with. Isn't that beautiful? So some of those running stitches stitch on top of the others, and that's what gives you a little bit of weight in that area, a little bit more definition. Right, Roy?
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah. I like the technique too.
I know. I love that technique too. And so these colors are 5, I think, right? 5 of the 7 colors in the rainbow. So that's why they all look so nice together. And of course, when you download the design, you're going to get this template and that's actual size. So you can print that out and actually use that. And then you'll also get on the second page, you get the color sequence. So it's like a thumbnail chip of the color thread that we use to digitize and stitch out this design. And it also shows you the portion of the embroidery design that will stitch in that color, like in blue. It's going to be just those few lines at the base of the feather, and then the orchid on number 2, and ballet pink, and so forth and so forth. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah, and let's see. Ashley Jones says, oh, she loves the ombre effect in the feather. I do too. It's so delicate. It is just beautiful. That was digitized so beautifully. I know. I love these, they come every week and, I want to stitch them out every single week, right? I'm sure you do too. So I hope that when you do stitch it out, that you'll quickly take a photograph of it and post it on social media, Facebook or Instagram, and tag it with hashtag on the house or hashtag dime sew along. And next Wednesday, we'll scour the internet looking for your post and then share them here in Between Friends. But next week will be the last Thursday of the month, and we'll have a project using the on the house design. So, and if you remember, I know many of you are here from my friends at OML Embroidery, the gang over at OML Embroidery, and Sue Brown. She hosts a sew along the Saturday after we release the project. So that's the last Thursday of the month. And on Facebook Live here at Between Friends. I will show that project and teach you how to do it. You can download it, and then you can watch Sue Brown stitch it out on Saturday. Isn't that fun, Roy?
Oh, yeah.
I know. It's great. It's so great. Well, I have to tell you, Roy, it was just delightful to have this relaxing hour with you. We don't normally get to just sit for an hour and chat and learn. We always do a million emails and phones and meetings and so forth, but it was really delightful. And your expertise has made Dime, the company that it is today. And we're so grateful for all of the contribution that you bring to Dime. We wouldn't be here without you, for sure.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're all a team.
We are a team. We definitely are a team. So thank you, everyone, for watching today. And we hope to see you here next week, 1 o'clock Central Time. And we're going to have a fun project.
Everybody be safe.